first item this evening is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. Are any of the 5 items that we have on the consent agenda being requested by council? Staff? Any interested party in the public asking to pull a consent agenda item? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Councilmember Munides, second by...
Mr. Chair, I will be abstaining. I was not here for that meeting, so I will abstain.
I was missing also.
Okay. Are you abstaining only from item 1, the approval of the minutes from...
The consent, yeah, the approval of the minutes. I will.
Okay.
So,
What's your...
I'm also.
Okay.
I'll abstain from item number 1 as well.
so we need to pull item number 1 off the consent agenda so we can vote on it separately.
Separately.
All right.
Yeah, we have the remainder of the consent.
Okay.
If we don't have a second, we have a motion,
And so,
and there was a second, but you want to amend your motion to reflect?
why don't I request that we...
I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, so the motion is to approve items 2 through 5 on the consent agenda by the full council. Do we have a second?
Second as amended.
Councilmember Mills is seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0. Item number 1 was pulled for the 4 council members to reconsider with 3 abstentions. The approval of council government's regular meeting minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved 4-0 with 3 abstentions. Item number 6 is public comment. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per person and limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, but not on the posted agenda. Do we have any public comment this evening? Seeing none. Item number 7, approving the allocation instructions for fiscal year 2018-19, the Regional Surface Transportation Program to fund the overall work program amendment number 1, as approved by the council, Ms. Reggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff is requesting the council approve resolution 19-9. This is an allocation that was identified in the overall work program amendment number 1, approved in the October meeting. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions by council on the RSTIP? Any public comment on, this is agenda item number 7. If you'd like, please step to the podium.
We're on item 7, Mr.
Item
Chairman.
number 7.
Thank you. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. I had a question about the RSTP money. It says something about the allocation instructions for the RSTP money to fund the overall work program. And I was wondering about a couple of months ago, I think it was, where the CMAQ money was converted to RSTP, as I remember. And I wondered, where is that?
I'm not aware of any CMAQ money being traded for RSTP. Is he talking about previous programming, the loan?
Yeah, I can clarify. So we loaned, or I guess exchanged CMAQ funds for RSTP funds with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, but they'll be returning RSTP funding, which is the federal funding. This is RSTP state exchange funds that funds the COG OWP. The RSTP that will be coming back from MTC will be coming back in fiscal year 1920.
So you will have RSTP money coming in, you just haven't received it yet?
Correct.
And that's why this doesn't reflect that 1.1 million or whatever it was?
And the RSTP that will be coming back will be federal RSTP, and it will be reflected in the CIP. This is the overall work program with the state exchanged RSTP.
Are you telling me that the federal RSTP money is not going to be available for local projects?
Yes, but it will be reflected in the COG CIP. We did a call for projects and all the projects that were previously programmed, she did a loan and it'll come back in the CIP. And we'll bring it back to the council.
Okay,
For clarification, there still will be local projects, but they're local projects that are under the CIP program. That's where this other $1 million RSTP funding that you're curious about, I believe, is being addressed.
okay, if I could move to page 20. There's a
Okay.
couple of tables at the top of the page. And both of them reflect RSTP money. And you'll see that in both tables, the year 1819, fiscal year 1819. The end of the top table, the beginning of the lower table. And on the right-hand side of the lower table, it says total, for example, of any of those. On the top one, it says 334,000. And if you look at that, that is the total of the lower table. But that's not the total for 1819. I mean, for the RSDP total going across for those years. If you were to include the 1819 in there. I guess what I'm saying is the totals on the bottom table don't reflect the real total of RSTP money.
If I could just clarify, the reason these two tables are segregated is the top table was from the first call for projects that we had, and we identified those projects. The second call for projects we just had in the last year are reflected in the second table.
Even though they both contain 18, 19 years.
Yes.
Okay?
There's been modifications, so there were at one time funding programmed to those projects, but throughout the call for projects over 4 years, the jurisdictions have chosen to move those around, have them reallocated, or they had them loaned out. So there's nothing in the top portion of 1819.
You said the agencies chose to move them around?
Yeah, if they have adjustments to their project schedules or the funding table, it's items that we've brought to the council over the,
But they don't move them around without the concurrence of the COG, right?
no,
Correct.
they do not.
Is there any further public comment?
Mr. Chair, I'll move aside.
We move to,
I will move aside.
we have the motion approving the allocation instructions by Councilmember Tofinelli. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Catalano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0. Agenda item number 8, resolutions approving allocation instructions for the payment of fiscal year 2018-19 local transportation funds. This is for Ms. Reggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As identified in the staff report, there are 3 resolutions. The allocation to the COG overall work program is approximately $272,000. The 2% bike and ped allocation is $14,760, and then we have the reserve within the fund that totals $1,177. The estimate by the county auditor controller came in at a little over $1 million. So throughout the year, I'll be updating the council on how the fiscal year allocations come out. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. We're moving 14,760 to the bike and ped
Yes.
account. Is
Yes.
there an amount in that account?
Yes, currently there's $50,000.
So it'll be 64,760 when we add this?
Yep. Plus interest. I wasn't adding interest to the $50,000.
All right, thank you.
Any further council comments? Any public comments on agenda item number 8? Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. Under discussion, the first sentence under discussion, it says Calaveras Council of Government allocation instructions in the amount of $272,000. But then when if you add up those itemized amounts in the second and third line there, they only add up to $100,000. Where's the 172,000 coming from, the other 172?
If I'm just itemizing the big items, if you looked at the overall work program on our website, Amendment 1, it'll detail all of the total, which equals the 272 plus the carryover from the previous year.
Well, how come it isn't detailed here?
I'm just summarizing the new year's allocations. I didn't need to go over the carryover.
And on the next page, on page 23, it talks about the bicycle and pedestrian fund. What is the balance of that?
It's approximately 51,000 now before the 14,760.
Did you say 51 or 61?
51.
5-1.
Thank you.
So it makes it close to 65,000. When we add the 14,760, it'll be close to 65,000.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further public comment on the approval of the allocation instructions for the fiscal year 2018-19 LTF? Seeing none, do we have a council motion to approve?
So moved.
Councilmember Unities,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilmember Tofinelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
I don't know about this next one.
Agenda item number 9, approving amendment number 1 of the professional services agreement with Transit Marketing LLC for phase 2 of the branding plan and marketing services for the Calaveras Transit Agency. Ms. Collins.
All right, thank you. The COG board awarded a consultant contract to Transit Marketing at the August regular meeting for a branding plan and marketing services. This project has been broken up into 2 phases. The first phase is development of a branding plan, which is currently underway, and a presentation will be provided to the CTA board at the 6:30 meeting. And phase 2 is implementation of the branding plan and development of marketing materials and campaign. The original contract only included funding for phase 1 as we were waiting for the final carryover amounts to fund phase 2. So the council approved the OWP, the fiscal year 18-19 OWP amendment number 1, which included the additional funding to fund phase 2, which is in the amount of $35,000. So we're requesting contract amendment number 1 with Transit Marketing for the phase 2 work for $35,000. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Council comment.
Where's the money coming from to pay for this?
Local transportation funds.
What's the amount of revenue that the bus brings in right now?
Through the advertising?
Just as general operations?
I don't have that amount off the top of my head.
Okay. I guess what I'm getting at is, will this rebranding, will it pay for itself? Or is it going to take 20 years to pay for itself?
That's quite a complicated question, but I don't believe that marketing will pay for itself. I think really the purpose of the rebranding, which we'll discuss at the CTA board meeting, is to improve the image of Calaveras Transit and ultimately improve the ridership, which ultimately will improve transit revenue.
Right.
We get revenue through fares from riders, and we also get revenue through transit advertising, which
And LTF.
the advertising program, right?
Okay.
Any other council comment? Any public comment on agenda item number 9? Mr. Caldwell.
Once again, Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. On the minute order, the last sentence says, the minute order 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 says, the min portion of it says, adding an amount of $35,000 for execution of Phase 2 for a not-to-exceed amount of $55,000. I think it should say after $55,000 that that is a maximum for Phases 1 and 2, not just for Phase 2. And I was looking at the amendment itself on page 32, and I don't see there that there's a time frame in which they are to complete Phase 2.
If you look on page 33, Exhibit A, amendment number 1.
I beg your pardon?
If you look at page 33, Exhibit A, the last line says, "All work shall be completed no later than June 30th, 2019."
On page 33,
At the bottom.
After
Last
adding,
sentence.
oh, I'm sorry, it says down here, this is the completion date. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. With respect to, now that we're on page 33, with respect to where it says passenger information, item 3, it says info display inserts for bus stop panels. How many do you get for the money that you're paying them? How many panels do you get? It doesn't say, 15 inserts or 12 inserts or 2 inserts. How many do you get?
This is for the design of all the marketing collateral we have for the transit system. It's not for the purchase of the actual signs.
It's not for the purchase of the signs?
Correct. This is for design of the marketing collateral, which includes information displays at the,
You mean they're not going to provide the
Various
inserts themselves? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, the physical copies they're not providing.
So they're just doing the artwork for it?
Yeah, the marketing. Yeah.
Okay, so how many of those are they going to do?
It's listed here in amendment number 1, the attachment, all the different passenger information collateral. So including route map, schedules, fares, website design, information displays.
Doesn't say how many.
well, I think Amber's point is that they're not actually providing the actual inserts. They're providing the design for the inserts for the transit agency to go ahead and,
So in other words, they
Subsequently-
can give you one and that would satisfy the agreement.
or the template, right, the template on what we should have designed.
Okay.
Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve amendment number 1 of the PSA with transit marketing to increase it from 20 to 55,000?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Levites. Seconded by Councilmember Herman. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Item number 10, our Caltrans report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gregoria Ponce, Caltrans District 10. The items that I'm bringing forward are pretty much items that are follow-ups from the last meeting. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay. First item I have is the Angel Oaks Greenhorn Creek replacement signs. We have ordered them, and we're having a little bit of trouble with our vendor, but we are assured that those are coming, and so those will be showing up soon. We have several safety investigations ongoing. We have the guardrail safety near Powerhouse Road, that's in process. We have State Route 2649, that's in process. And we have a few others. We have a crosswalk in for inquiry, State Route 49 and St. Charles Street, and that's east and west. And a safety investigation has been initiated, and that is also ongoing. So we have a few. Moving forward to the speed limit sign changes. Communication has been ongoing for revisions for that section. And I understand maintenance has queued up, so those are either in process or will be shortly.
Actually, we want to thank you because it's been done.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
That's really all I have for right now. I did have one,
Go ahead, you finish.
okay. I did have one item, and that was a right-hand turn lane not staying green at 4 and 49. Okay.
Who wants to talk about it?
Was it Murphy's Grade or
Bring it up.
was Murphy's Grade or was it?
No,
Was it
449.
49 at the,
It's not Murphy's Grade?
No. Go ahead.
It not timing right, and I don't know how many seconds, sorry, it's not timing right, so when everything else is stopped, it's not going to turn green. So normally it's red with the right hand turning green, and it's not doing that anymore. Somehow the timing is off
Okay,
with the lights.
okay.
And I don't,
Yeah, this is at Murphy's Grade Road and Highway 49, not 4 and 49. Murphy's
okay.
Grade Road.
449.
And I've experienced it
No,
personally. so-
they were happening at both intersections.
You get it there,
Yeah,
too?
yeah, yeah, yep,
Okay.
sorry.
at both
Yeah, at
intersections.
both intersections.
I'll clarify that with our maintenance
Yeah,
crew to make
sorry
sure.
about that, yeah.
Are any of the signs that you're replacing part of our capital improvement program, county roadway sign reflectivity upgrade?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, separate. Chair, I would like to speak briefly to thank Caltrans for their work along the road edge on Highway 49 between San Andreas and Angels Camp. The improvement is remarkable. Interestingly enough, because the gravel is lighter than the road, it does help at night in maintaining people within their traffic lane. So it is a market improvement and very, very well appreciated.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank Caltrans for them working with COG and Public Works here to move the signs, the speed limit signs on Highway 49 through San Andreas back to the locations they were. I do have one request though. On this end of town by Mountain Ranch Road, when you come out here to leave, you go to 49, directly across the street, they placed a 40-mile-an-hour sign there. I would request to have it moved further down, south, on the other side of Toyanza Road, because right there, people at Mountain Ranch trying to turn left onto the highway, and Toyanza trying to turn on the highway at 40 miles an hour, it's still, you're going to have some major accidents there at that speed. If we could move it back and then put a warning sign somewhere by the old airport over here, flashing saying reduce speed ahead, it would benefit the community extensively, I think, safety-wise, especially with the older folks. And there's a home there, a senior citizen home there, coming out of Toyanza, and older people trying to come across there. I've heard many stories and many complaints. We've had many accidents there. But I want to thank you for working with us, Caltrans, in getting those done and moved quickly. Thank you.
And just to confirm, you'd like it to move to the other side of Toyanza, south?
Right, the southbound 49.
Yeah, southbound, yeah.
Okay.
If you, when you go home and you leave and you go down Mountain Ranch Road to 49 or this side, if you look directly across, you'll see the 40-mile-an-hour sign right there.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, it needs to be moved that way south, further down.
Okay.
And Toyanza is the next left-hand turn
Yeah.
past Mountain Ranch here. And that's a subdivision in there, and a lot of elderly folks live in there again, and there's a nursing home back in there. And so if we get that 30 mile an hour, at least that 40 moved, and maybe a 30 there, our safety for our community would be truly enhanced.
Noted, I will take that back.
Thank you.
And then
And he's also referring to northbound coming into town at that same location. That's where that flashing light that she's looking for is right there.
Yeah, I think the 30's before Anza going northbound, coming into town, and it's 40 as you're coming past the old
Right.
airport,
Yeah.
which is nice. So
Yeah.
that was a good proof.
It's just that one across the street
Right.
needs to be moved
Going
down.
southbound.
So it's 30 past Toyanza and
Right.
past Mountain Ranch. And then it starts 40. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
And then I have a question. Is there some options that we can work with Caltrans to do slowing down traffic going into Angels in the north part of town? What the speed limit, 45?
45
It's
there.
45,
Till you
but
get to
they,
Francis.
but they're going all the way through town past the Middleton Shopping Center, still at that speed. So I don't know what kind of options we can look at if they're not gonna be interested in lowering the speed to get the traffic to slow down, whether it be ripples in the road or some kind of a flashing, I mean, I don't know what other, I know in the past we've requested for Caltrans to look at that area going into town to try and get the cars to slow down, but it never really seemed to go.
It makes sense to get
Anyway.
35 at Capella.
Yeah, but I don't know, we've always gotten it shut down, so if there's some other alternative in the meantime while we work through that, to let drivers know that they need to slow down. Because there's a bus stop, I think the bus stop is still there where they pick up the kids from the apartments, and other activities coming in and out of there.
Do you have a cross street? Is this,
Capella Drive.
It's going
North to
Capella,
south?
north into Angels Camp, Capella Drive.
It's right after.
Right.
After you come
Well,
into
it
town,
makes sense for the-
45 and then you hit Capella.
And still
Okay.
45 all the way to Francis.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
It
Cherokee
is
Creek.
45.
Yeah, so from Capella to Francis, Clifton Road, Francis,
Even past that.
yeah.
Didn't that used to be 35,
Past
Capella?
Middleton's and,
Right.
Sometime
It-
back,
They put that
wasn't
tractor
it
supply
slower?
in.
I
It's
thought
much
it
worse.
always
I think
was,
they were raised.
and then they increased, or something happened and it went up to 45.
Yeah, because I always freaked out, and I'm like, I was doing 50 and I come into town, I start to slow down, I'm thinking, I can still do 45 here?
it goes past the shopping center that has a big hardware store that people go to a lot, and there's a bank there too.
Used
So
to
it's heavily, that going into that shopping center is heavily used, and it was up to 45 miles an hour, and it's causing problems because of that.
I will take that back
Yeah,
and do some research.
yeah, thank you.
Park an old ACPD car right at the top of Capella Drive, and people probably light up and stop sliding right there.
Yeah.
I think if we slowed down before, where we hit the top of the hill, it says 45. If it kind of was, if it
Do you
said
have any-
45 before that, if it said 45 before that, or, I mean, unless we change it to 35.
Yeah.
And actually, there's an office of the education there, a station at that shopping center also, the state
Valley.
office.
In the grocery.
Amanda, if you have an old patrol car, you can do what Markleeville does. They park it and leave it there. Everybody comes into town, they hit their brakes because
Oh,
think
yes,
they're
they
gonna get
do it. They do a lovely nosedive, don't
Yes,
they?
yeah, they do.
Yes,
Just
I
need-
watch
just put
them.
A battery, solar powered
With the
light.
Yeah, and about every couple weeks, they move it to the other side of the street in another location.
It's very effective.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna
just-
hear a lot of
works.
squealing brakes.
Yeah.
Not really to speak on behalf of Angels Camp here,
Really
but that
tired.
area, as it improves or increases in use, and I'm talking about with Tractor Supply and some other businesses coming into that area, that might be a consideration for a traffic study to look at slowing that whole area down to 35, all the way from Capella Park in, rather than letting them run 45 all the way to the next sign, which is down there by,
Past Cherokee Creek. and
almost to
Francis.
Clifton,
Yeah.
which is way too far. That's too high a speed in that area. And then people coming out of that parking lot by Middleton's is just, they're dodging things. So it's just something to think about in the longer term, slowing that traffic down.
That's a good segue, because I was going to mention, Gregory, this is an area of town that we just initiated a planning study on, the North Main Street corridor study with
Okay.
Caltrans. So we are just initiating that study that you're referring to.
Do you have a timeline for when you might have a draft of that study, or?
We just got that started.
Oh, right.
And
Gotcha.
coordinating with Kevin, and it's actually
Right.
funded through Caltrans. So probably,
Okay.
I would say 12 to 18 months.
Okay. Well, we look forward to coordinating with you on that. I have no other items to share.
Yep, yep, no, thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Item number 11, county report. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair and members of the council. This is my introduction to most of you. I know a few of you already. My name's Joshua Pack. I'm the new Director of Public Works for Calaveras County. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to work with you and work with Amber and the COG team. A little bit of background on myself, just to introduce myself to many of you who may not know me. I have about 2 decades of experience, primarily in civil and traffic engineering. I have both licenses in civil and traffic. My previous 6 years were with the county of Nevada, about 2 hours north, just north of Sacramento. A lot of the duties that I did there are very similar to my duties here. I served as a liaison to the COG up there, as well as a number of other duties related to engineering and capital projects. One of the directions that I've received from my board is an improved and intense concentration on the capital improvement program. To that end, I've been working closely with Amber already to identify projects in the COG. As many of you are already familiar, some of the dates on the fiscal years of these, and particularly in our category, are quite old. And I will be meeting with my staff. As you can imagine, this is my 4th week here, so I know everything already. But with that said, I've got a lot to catch up on. My kickoff meeting with my staff in order to start tackling procedures and processes on these projects is next Monday, or next Tuesday. Monday is a holiday. So next Tuesday, we have a 3-hour time set aside to go through a lot of these. My plan subsequent to that is to bring a new capital improvement program to the Board of Supervisors, including many of these, if not all of these projects. That hasn't been done in quite some time, so that'll be coming to the board, and I'll be coordinating with Amber and the COG as well on those projects, and especially the projects on our list that reflect that. Projects in particular on my radar, the Oberyn's Ferry left turn pocket, the State Route 4 wagon trail realignment, the Mountain Ranch intersection improvement project, as well as the county roadway sign retro reflectivity upgrade project. Obviously all these projects are a priority, but those are 4 that are on my radar immediately. So again, this is an opportunity to introduce myself to you. I'm looking forward to work with you and the COG, as well as to continue our relationship with the COG and the community and Angels Camp as well. I know one thing we're working on as well is the recently funded work to do the asset management system. We're actually meeting in the next week or 2 to go over that, subsequent to a request for proposals for that should go out sometime in the next month or so. We're looking forward to have that, to work with the COG and Angels Camp with that. So other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. If I am a little light on the information on the projects, please forgive me. I promise I will come up to speed very quickly. And I'm happy to take any questions that may not be answered today to go back and get those answers to you forthwith. So any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Council.
Joshua, welcome.
Thanks.
Your staff to this point has been very responsive and is, I think, more than adequately meeting our needs. So we appreciate their effort and your effort in identifying these critical issues that have been languishing for some of them since 2010, a long time. So I'm glad that we're going to tackle with the CIP first and to really try to understand where we can make the best use of those funds and get these things off the books.
I agree.
So, thank you for the work.
Thank you. And I do want to highlight one thing that's been The first week, I wanted to jump in, but SB1 and Proposition 6 was something that was critical to our budget, as well as I'm sure Angels Camp as well had some impact there. The results of that came back today gives us some very clear direction, especially since gas tax and SB1 funding is critical to our budget. So this was a major piece before starting the process and moving forward. So again, the hope is to bring that to you sometime in the first part of 2019. I'm hoping January. I'm an ambitious person. I'm going to stick with that until it's physically impossible, but it is an ambitious schedule, but I'm dedicated to bringing that to you and to the public as soon as possible.
We have good news for you. We're going to give you a month reprieve because we don't have a January meeting.
Okay. February, I promise.
Any further council questions for Mr. Beck? Well, on behalf of the council, certainly we're happy to see that the county is happily hired a new public works director, and we look forward to seeing and working with you very fruitfully in the future here.
I look forward to that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Item number 12, city report. I'm not sure if we have a city staff member here.
Oh, I think the mayor should give that report.
Okay. Well, included in our agenda was a summary of the funding for their CIP program for your information. Item number 13, the transit report. I think that comes back to us now.
Sure, I can update the council. The bus AVL system project here, which is the software program we've been talking about for several months now, was fully implemented on November 1st. So the drivers and paratransit services staff has been fully trained, and so it's fully operating right now, and just working out a few bugs here and there, and still working with the consultant staff to make some tweaks and fixes to make sure that the drivers have everything they need to function with the system, and the dispatchers have everything they need. But I'm very excited about this program. There's tons of data and information that we'll be able to get in real time, be able to report to the board in a much more timely manner with accurate reporting. So we're very excited about that project.
Any questions about the transit report? Okay, thank you, Herbert.
Public comments? See that little sign right there? Ask for public comment.
Every item, okay. Mr. Colwell, come on up.
Thank you.
This is item number 13.
I had a question on page 41, the top paragraph.
We are not on that agenda item yet.
I'm sorry, what?
Page 41 is agenda item 15, which is the executive director report.
That's what you just had her give.
No, it's transit.
No,
We
she
were on
just
item
gives it.
13.
Oh, well,
Now
I have
14's council reports.
I have a
and-
question on that too.
Okay, item 13.
Item 13. I'm looking at this at a glance, CIP,
Right,
on page 37.
correct.
And it says at the bottom item says bus stop lighting project. Weren't all of the projects at bus stop lighting and the bus shelters and so forth, weren't they all completed? All of them?
They were not.
3.
I beg your pardon?
They were not.
No?
I can clarify. On the bus stop lighting project, actually, you're correct. That has been fully implemented and completed, and they came in under budget. So there's remaining funds on that project that we need to reprogram to a different project. I think they're referring to the bus stop improvement project. That one has not been completed.
Yes, there's still 3 to...
I just wanted to point out, and I don't know who the transit manager is, but the shelter at the corner of Highway 26 and Vista del Lago in the shopping center lot there, the light doesn't work. As far as I know, it hasn't worked since it was installed. And I remember you had problems with lights not working, and you had to get replacements or something for them. Well, that one still isn't working.
Okay. take our truck with 200 miles and get that addressed. Okay, that concludes item number 13. Item number 14, council reports. Councilmember Immunities.
We will be doing the lighted parade again the day after, the night after Thanksgiving, going into White Pines. We had almost 4,000 people last year, so.
Councilmember Mills.
Thank you. The Wagon Trail Project, the build grant, as Amber has been very helpful in giving us the needed information to present. Our congressman spoke directly to DOT regarding that grant on our behalf, and Neil O'Connell, who's the legislative lobbyist for the county, has also spoken with DOT, and there should be a decision made probably sometime in mid-December. And just to let the council know that there are only 2 projects in the entire this part of California that are ranked, and we are one of 2. The other one is on Highway 50 as you top over into Truckee, or on top over into South Lake Tahoe on Highway 50. So very good placement as far as we're concerned, and hopefully as we look to FLAP grants and other grants that we can also engage our federal people in helping us to get those accomplished. Keep the funding sources rolling. That's for Wagon Trail, by the way.
Councilmember Catalano.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Really? Councilmember Tofinelli.
I have nothing to report
Okay.
at this time.
Well, I'm certainly happy to re-welcome, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay, I have something to report. So we did pass the sales tax measure, so that's wonderful. So we really needed that. And Amanda Follendorf and Alvin Brolio were elected. And it's the second time for Amanda, so that's a good thing. And Alvin Brolio. And then on November 24th, I think it is, yes, that we're having the Christmas parade and wine hop, I think it is. But anyway, you know, the wine throughout. So it's a good event. It's very popular. Going to have a little bit more places in which you can go to have the wine and wine tasting. So it looks like a good evening. So everyone's invited.
I think all the information that I was thinking about has been addressed, so I'm concluded too. Council is done. Staff member reports. Nothing?
I'll just add to Supervisor Mills' comments, and I was going to bring this up and thank Supervisor Mills for his tireless efforts for the build grant. I think he did a lot of work on our behalf, working with McClintock, his staff, and then the county's legislative liaison. So I do greatly appreciate that, and hopefully we'll see good results from that. And I think in the future we'll know what to improve upon in coordinating directly with the USDOT staff. So thank you. And then I did just want to let you know there'll be a change on future COG agendas, where you see the county, city, and transit reports now with the CIP reports. We worked with the TAC, and we'll be bringing back just the quarterly reports so that city and county staff can come and provide presentations on the quarterly CIP reports, as opposed to having them every single month. I think it'll be more productive and they'll be able to show a little bit more progress on those projects. So you'll be seeing that change. And happy to answer any other questions that was in my staff report.
How'd your trip go?
Oh, good. Yes, very good.
Any other council comments for our executive director? I want to compliment you on the little timeline that you put on. I think that's helpful too, just to clarify these reports. This has been a really nice summary for me, just to kind of take a look at the variety of projects that you're multitasking through on a monthly basis for you and your staff, and you guys are doing a good job, so I'm glad to see this. Agenda item number 15, Mr. Caldwell, I believe you had a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs, and I apologize for jumping the gun there. Back to page 41 where I was before, erroneously, I might add. The Pope Street thing, as I said, the top paragraph there, the last sentence says, or next to last sentence, I'm sorry, says a request for proposals for consultant services planned to be released in the fall. And I'm wondering whether that's been released already since we're now running out of fall time. Has that already been released, that request for proposals?
No, it has not. We
Is
had
that-
to schedule around, the COG meeting. We don't have a COG meeting in January, so we're releasing the RFP by the end of this month. So I guess technically, is that
Where it
is that
says
winter?
in the fall, that's the fall of 2018 then, right? Not 2019.
Correct,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And so I think we might actually meet that schedule.
We have till December 21st.
That's right.
Is that official
That's
winter?
right.
Okay.
That's
Start of winter.
I'm disappointed to hear that they're going to quarterly reports. I like the monthly reports, and I like to stay on top of things that are happening or not happening. And I think going to quarterly reports just leaves that much more time to fall behind when they do fall behind. Thank you.
I think that concludes our staff reports. I will now adjourn the COG meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for December 5th at 5:30 in these chambers. In 10 minutes at 6:30, we will have the transit meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Calaveras Transit Agency regular meeting on November 7th.
Could you please turn your mic back?
We'll do that one more time. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Calaveras Transit Agency meeting of November 7th. Our first item is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. We have two items of the consent agenda. Are there any council?
I will be abstaining. I was not here, so on the minute for it.
Yeah, me too.
Three.
Three?
Three of us.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to pull two, please.
And you'd like to pull number 2? Okay.
For a motion for number one.
So
And
with the 4 remaining members who were at the meeting in October, was there a motion to approve the Calaveras Transit Agency regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Munides, seconded by Councilmember Mills. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 4-0. Okay. Councilmember Munides, you pulled item number 2.
Yes, seeing it's on the agenda, I thought we might have a chat about maybe restructuring the way we meet. We seem to have a gap in between Council of Governments and Transit. I'm wondering if we can maybe consider moving Transit first, and then Council of Governments, or changing the way we notice for the public meetings that gives us the ability to immediately go into the second meeting, so we don't have a 15 or 30-minute delay.
Okay.
So,
And it's my compliments to the staff on the COG side of it that our meetings are running very efficiently and aren't taking even a full hour at times, and I believe that's the issue that's being addressed. We tried to define a specific start time. For example, as you see this evening with the proclamation we're going to do, it makes it convenient for the public to know a specific start time. Having said that, I don't have an objection to agendizing this both for the COG board, because we need to have, I think, the ability as a COG board to discuss this as well at our December meeting for implementation in February of 19, perhaps going either to 6 p.m. or perhaps after the second, after consent agenda, hold the transit agency meeting and then move on with the COG meeting. And if that would work, I think our intent was to try and ensure that we were transparent and open to the public with all the changes. We wanted to ensure that people who only wanted to come to the transit agency meeting didn't have to sit through a full COG meeting if it extended beyond an hour. But I'm also sensitive to the council's concerns about efficiency at our meetings here. So I think I'm going to ask staff to go ahead and agendize this for a full discussion both at the COG and the transit agency meeting for December, so that we can take, it can be an action item where we can fully implement whatever recommendation the council approves.
thank you. Just want to have the discussion.
Okay? You're asking for a discussion. I'm actually recommending that we actually have an actionable item so that we can
Correct,
implement it for
yes.
2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same page.
Beyond that, the meeting calendar itself, does that work for everyone?
I'll move this item.
Okay. We have a motion to move by
Second.
Councilmember Tofinelli, seconded by Councilmember Munides. Is there any public comment on the Calaveras Transit Agency meeting calendar? Mr. Caldwell.
Chair, you asking for comment on the meeting times?
On the meeting calendar, just the dates. Just the dates.
Item number 2 on our agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thought you were considering that there. Comment.
What was recommended is that we actually agendize for both the COG and the Transit Agency December meetings with a
I
full
think,
discussion.
no matter what you do, whether you switch it one way or the other, there's still got to be starting times for each of the meetings.
Correct.
So you're going to end up with, if one finishes early, you're going to end up with a gap no matter what. And I guess you need to bring a magazine or something to read, newspaper, I don't know, during that time.
We have an item that has been moved and seconded to approve the calendar schedule for the Calaveras Transit Agency. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0. Public comment. For the Calaveras Transit Agency, it is also limited to 5 minutes per person and limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have any public comment for the Calaveras Transit Agency this evening? Okay, seeing none. Item number 4. A proclamation recognizing Ms. Rodriguez for service above and beyond. Ms. Collins.
All right, thank you. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to recognize the driver, Olivia Rodriguez, who through her actions has really demonstrated her commitment to customer service and care for our riders and for our community. And these actions really have gone above and beyond and really deserve some acknowledgement here. So I'm excited that we have this opportunity as board to recognize this driver. And before I hand it off to the board chair, I'd like to invite up Cynthia Lawrence with Paratransit Services to give us a little background on Ms. Rodriguez and kind of the story.
Hello, Cynthia Lawrence, Paratransit Services, contractor for Calaveras Transit. So on July 7th, or excuse me, 16th, we had a passenger board our transit and a senior, and was going to go to Jackson. And Liviere happened to be the driver for her. She dropped her off at the government center, gave her a transfer, and directed her to the correct bus that would be coming. It became obvious to us when we received a call that this was an at-risk senior, and she actually was now missing. We continued to look for her throughout the day, and were unsuccessful. And you can imagine the caretakers were very concerned about where she was. And you got to remember, in July, the heat was about 90 degrees during the day, and very cold in the evenings for a senior. On July 17th, we received a call asking if we can put up flyers, and she was still missing. Liviere, we made her aware and the other drivers to look for our senior, and as it turns out, Liviere remembered she was looking for her the day before, and she got very concerned. So at the end of her shift, she went out and she was going to find her, and she looked everywhere and happened to come over to the library, and she found her, and she was in sort of like a ravine kind of, and normally it would have water underneath some bushes and trees, luckily out of the sun. But they had been looking for her, and they looked there before, and they hadn't seen her there. As it turns out, she had fallen and wasn't able to get up and call for help. So we were very excited about finding her, and we actually have some people here that want to honor her as well. We have Miss Ellie, who was our senior, her husband Royce, Shauna and Kayla, and I apologize, Jamie, who just wanted to give their thanks for helping and finding her and give a little testimony to what this really meant to them as well. I'll turn it over to Jamie.
I think this, what we wanted to share was the exciting part about this process, that we had no clue where to find Elsie, and we're desperate. And we would never have seen her. We wouldn't have thought to walk where Olivier had walked. We would have never noticed, remembered what Elsie had been wearing that day. And it was only because she went there. And after being out there, we think probably at least 20 hours. We probably wouldn't have Elsie if it weren't for Olivier going and looking and finding her like she did, because we would have never thought to look as closely and the places that Olivier looked. When we say that she was hidden, she was wearing khaki-colored shirts and some tan pants, and she was at the bottom of the creek bed, and there was brush everywhere. And in fact, I think people had been by there before several times through the day and not found her. So it was Olivier. You want to give Olivier her flowers? Olivier, her flowers. And we're so grateful for you.
Thank you, and thank to God, because that give me the tattoo, my faith to go and look for her. So here I am, trying to look for her, and I searched for her, so I found her. But God, it was there helping me to
above and beyond anything we could ever thought. Thank
Okay,
you so much.
Thank you.
And you want to give
And thank you, everybody. And here we are for what we can do for the community, to help anybody in our county.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Olivier, if you wouldn't mind staying up by the podium. As a COG board, one of the opportunities we have is to actually do a proclamation, and we have formally are doing a proclamation here recognizing you for the services above and beyond the call of duty. I'll read this off and then present you the proclamation itself. Whereas a part of the mission of the Calaveras Transit Agency is to provide a safe public transportation service, and whereas the health and safety of its riders depends upon the care and quality of service provided by its employees, and whereas on July 16th, 2018, Mrs. Rodriguez went beyond the required duties of her job to ensure the safety of a transit rider who is an older adult who went missing after riding Calaveras Transit Service, and whereas Olivier Rodriguez, a bus driver and employee of Paratransit Services, demonstrated her dedication to the safety of our riders, and now, therefore be it resolved, that the Calaveras Transit Agency recognizes Mrs. Rodriguez for services above and beyond the call of duty. And I'm going to ask for a motion to pass and adopt this.
So moved.
Moved by Council-
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it's been approved 7-0. So,
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Wait, we don't do it that way.
Come up here.
You gotta come up here.
Come on up here.
Come on.
Come up here.
There we go.
And bring her up.
Oh, do you want to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bring her up too.
Take another picture, okay?
You guys, you can come up and come on up and take a picture up here. Right here, yeah.
Thank you.
Come on up, take a picture up here.
We all did it.
There you go.
Hang on, they're gonna take one.
Okay,
Thank you guys so much.
Come on, now.
Good job.
They're trying to get us out of here.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, regular agenda item number 5, the presentation of the branding process and concepts. Ms. Collins.
My apologies, yeah. I will actually introduce Selena Barlow with Transit Marketing, and she's here to facilitate this presentation and discussion here tonight for then board feedback and discussion. Thank you, Selena.
Good evening. Is on? Okay. Well, I'm going to stand here rather than over there because
The mic
otherwise
won't
you're
pick
going
you
to
up.
get a crank in your neck from looking between me and the slides, and what's going to be on the slides is very important.
Ms. Barlow, the microphone won't pick you up if you're not close to it.
Okay. I will try sitting then.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me all right now? Okay. Several months ago, you approved a contract with my firm, Transit Marketing, to work on branding and marketing of the new Calaveras Transit Agency. Since that time, we have completed phase 1 of that project, which is the establishment of a name and brand for the service. And what I'd like to do tonight is to share that with you, the work we've done so far, and to give you an opportunity for input to the final selection of a logo for the system. But before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of context. I want to talk a little bit about what a brand is. Because at the broadest definition, a brand is everything that a customer or a potential customer knows or thinks or believes about a product or service. That kind of brand is developed over a long time, and it's developed with the help of people like your driver, Olivier. But tonight we're going to be talking about brand in a more limited version. We're going to be talking about a visual brand or a brand identity. And that basically includes the name and the logo of a system. And when we talk about branding in these terms, what we're talking about is basically your organization's clothes, its skin, what people see when they first come to the product. And very much like you would wear a suit to an interview or a dress to a party, a brand can communicate things that you want it to communicate. It can make a good first impression. It can create a personality for you. And it can establish a style that you might use throughout all of your marketing efforts. What a brand cannot do is be your resume. It can't explain what transit does and everything you're about. We have maps and schedules and websites and lots of other tools for that. What a brand can do, though, is identify your system and everything associated with it. And an effective brand should become a quickly and easily recognizable link between all of the elements of your system, between your buses, your bus stops, your passenger guides, your website, everything associated with your transit agency. Your brand should link all those together. And in order to do that effectively, a brand, a logo, needs to be memorable. It needs to be something that once people see a few times, they remember it, they recognize it, and it then provides a place for them to put all of the things that they know and learn about your system. And in order to be memorable, a brand needs to be simple, not have too many moving parts. It needs to be well designed, and it needs to be used consistently. It needs to be used on everything that you do so that people, through repetition, come to remember your system and to have an image of it. So that's the context. With that in mind, this is your existing brand. This is a brand that was developed actually, in the interest of honesty, by my firm about 15 years ago when you first started this service. And it's not a bad brand. It basically fits those criteria. It's clear, it's memorable, it's recognizable. But what it also is dated. It is 15 years old. The colors look like they're from 15 years ago, the type style, and particularly the buses. The buses have sort of an old-fashioned government feel that is the best you could do 15 years ago because you didn't have a lot of resources to work with. But what they're not doing is taking advantage of the potential that buses have to be an incredible communication vehicle for a transit agency. And perhaps it's time to bring them in line with today's standards. So with those things in mind, staff set about this project. And the first thing that we did was talk to a lot of different stakeholders, talk to a few of you here in the room, city and county administrators, folks from Angels Camp, the COG, Paratransit Services, the SS TAC. All of these people have had an opportunity to have input to this process. With the things that they told us, we basically identified 3 objectives for the project. The first was to update the agency's image to be more friendly and less government. And basically what we heard from people is, you know, we want this to be a system that people look at and go, oh, that's a service I want to use, not just that's a service I need to use. And so they wanted a friendlier feel about it, a more commercial feel. The second thing was to provide a fresh look for the system, and particularly for the vehicles, as I was talking about a few minutes ago, to really begin to take advantage of their potential as a communications tool by making them brighter and bolder and more engaging. But with that said, we also had the caveat that Amber and this board were considering selling advertising on the buses, and that we needed to not do something that would preclude that opportunity. So we had that in mind as we thought about it. And then the third objective that came about was creating enhanced passenger information for the system. And while this isn't really branding, this is really phase 2, it is a really critical part of this project, making the system easier to use. And once we have a brand in place, that'll be our next step, is to create new guides, to enhance the website, and to leverage technology to provide information about the transit system in the ways that people are used to getting it now, on their phone, in their pocket. My phone's in there, that was the reference. So with those 3 objectives in mind, we embarked on a 2-step process. The first step was to identify a name, decide what we're going to call the system, and the second step was then to craft that name into a brand that would meet those objectives I talked about earlier. So starting with the brand, we had lots of meetings, some in person, some by phone. We talked about this a lot, we brainstormed, and we looked at a lot of names. We looked at names that focused on the local history and culture, things like Hopper and Jumper and The Rush and Calaveras Vine and 49 Flyer. And while they were kind of fun names, they had a lot of limitations. And we looked at names that focused on transportation, like Calaveras Transit, what you're called now, the T, Calaveras Ride. But then we came around to looking at one name that really focused on the benefit of transit, what transit does, that it connects people and places. And that really resonated with the folks in our group, and we kept coming back to the name Calaveras Connect. And there were a number of things that we thought made this a really strong name, and that it really came to be the consensus decision. One was that connect conveys what transit does. It connects people to places, it connects people to opportunities, and that's what transit really is all about. The second thing is that the word connect, we think about the connotations that words have, and the word connect has very positive connotations. We talk about being well connected, we talk about making connections. You know, we talk about connecting in a very positive sense generally, so it has an upbeat kind of feeling. We would definitely continue to use the word Calaveras in the name because that ties it to the local community. That defines the service area. And we have this wonderful advantage here that it creates this nice alliteration. Calaveras Connect is a name that sort of rolls off your tongue. It's easy to say. It has a nice cadence to it. And it's very easy to work into taglines and headlines. It has a lot of marketing potential. We can talk about We Connect You to Life. We can talk about your Columbia College connection. We can talk about Catch the Connect or connecting Calaveras communities. There are a lot of ways that we can use the concept of connection. And that means that it will become more memorable. The more we use it, the more repetition there is, the more people will understand the concept and the more aware they'll be of the transit agency. So with that name decided on, with Calaveras Connect in our pocket, then we began to think about logos and vehicle applications. And we thought about them in tandem. We did the design process of both at one time because we know that on the vehicles is the primary use of the logo. That's where more people will see it than will see it anywhere else because thousands of people see your vehicles moving up and down the road every day. And right now, they might be kind of invisible to them, but our objective is to make it otherwise. So, we're going to show you tonight two alternatives. We looked at a lot of logos. We looked at a lot of different ideas and different ways of saying Calaveras Connect. And then we looked at a lot of different ways of putting those on the vehicles and graphicing vehicles so they're more interesting and so they're not so white. And we came down to two alternatives that are fairly similar in some ways, very different in others. We think that either of these could be a strong brand for the system, but we haven't made a final decision yet, and we would really like your input on that. Alternative one is a very classic kind of logo. It is almost corporate in its simplicity. It has a very solid, contemporary, yet a little bit traditional feel to it. The C's from Calaveras and Connect are embedded in each other, but there are a couple things that I want to point out about this logo that makes it not quite as simple as it looks. First, I want to start with the color, because both of the logos we show you tonight are going to be in this color palette of blue and green. And we picked this color palette, we looked at a lot of different color options, and we picked this palette for a number of reasons. One is that people kept saying they wanted a fresh look for the system. They wanted something that was fresh and bright and new. And these colors are fresh and bright and new. They are also very friendly colors because while they're bold and bright and eye-catching, they are not in any way garish or dark. They have that kind of lightness that we want to create for a sense for the system. They also, while they are not actually the color of grapevines and of the sky here in Calaveras County, they're kind of a stylish nod to the natural elements here, to the blues and greens that make up a rural community like this. So I think these are colors that work very well. In this logo, there are a couple of other things I want to point out. It'd be easier if I was standing over there, but I will try using the pointer. This one. Ah, it does kind of work. In the C's, you'll note a couple of things. One is that the C's are offset a little bit, and that if you continued the C on around, they would form a wheel. So they're kind of a subtle nod to the idea of a wheel in transit. And they're offset a little bit, like one is rolling inside of the other one. The other thing about these C's is there are some color gradations in them. There are some swoops of color, both in the blue and the green, that add a little bit of interest. And those slashes of color could also be pulled out of the logo and used in backgrounds and other elements to carry this style through into the other marketing materials. Now the logo works in a stacked version as well as a horizontal version, and that's helpful in transit because buses go this way and bus stop signs go that way typically, so you can see that it works in both ways. And then I wanted to show you how this logo might be used on a vehicle. The logo itself is obvious, but I think what is more important is the way the colors from the logo and the elements from the logo are used on this vehicle. We want the vehicles to be primarily not white in the future. Having color on the vehicles sets them apart from all the other things they look like. The RVs and the delivery vehicles and the social service vehicles that they just blend in with. We want to use color to make your vehicles distinct and clearly part of the transit system and eye-catching. So we've used the blue on the front of the vehicle with a thin line of white, and then the green is actually the curve of the C. So it's actually the letter C blown up very large and curved around the bus so that you're carrying that graphic element from the logo through in the design. I think from a most obvious point of view, just the blue and the green, the two very bright colors side by side on the vehicle, are going to make them just incredibly visible. People are going to see them in a way they don't see your vehicles right now. You'll note that the area behind the word Calaveras Connect in the back is left white, and that is intentional for the sale of advertising space. So we looked at, Amber and I looked at, what spaces the advertising company might sell. That is a space that they could easily sell. It does not then impact your branding on the vehicle, and then the back of the vehicle is another opportunity as well. So that is option number one. Classic, corporate, clean design, something that'll work well and would serve you well into the future. The second alternative is very similar to the first in a lot of ways. It's the same colors. It uses the same very contemporary sans serif type, but it has a very different personality. So where that initial logo was corporate, classic, a little traditional, this logo is more friendly, a little imaginative, even a little unexpected. Because when you first look at it, you go, what are all those little dots doing in the word connect? And it makes you stop and think about it for a moment. And once you do, and you realize, oh, it's connecting the dots, which is what transit does. It connects the dots on a map, it connects the places in our lives. I think it makes you smile once you think about what it means and it comes to you. So a little more playful, a little less corporate, but one of the things that we heard in our stakeholder interviews is that folks wanted a friendly kind of identity, a friendlier image, and I think that this logo delivers on that friendlier image. Used on a bus, it offers some of the same potential. You can see the arc of the green is again the arc of the C, and then there's a big dot at the end of the C. The artist has used the same thing on the door, just the C with the dot as a single graphic element. The dots have a lot of potential for creative use. They can be used on maps, they can be used in creative elements, just as the swooshes from the C's and the other logo could provide a background element. The dots have that same sort of potential with this logo, something that can be carried through and come to be part of the brand of the system. Whatever logo you go with and whatever vehicle graphics, one of the key things on the vehicle will be to use the website prominently. That's how people get information these days. We want people to know where to go to get information about Calaveras Connect. And calaverasconnect.com is available, so we could switch to that website and have a dual website. So our second option, a little more playful, a little more creative, a little friendlier, but carrying through the same basic concepts of good, clean design, immediate recognizability, and using the blue and green as a bold, bright, but friendly color palette. And so these are our two options, and I'd ask for your input at this point.
Amber, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Yeah, I think we wanted to present these concepts to the council for your discussion and feedback to us, and if you wanted to provide additional direction in moving forward. But from here, we really would move forward with one brand logo concept as we've presented here, and then in December bring back the whole toolkit of the, all of the designs with the brand for your acceptance. And from there, the COG board approved phase 2 for the marketing plan and campaign. So from there, we would really move aggressively forward to kick that process off.
So the next step then would be passenger guides, Google Transit, promotional tools for the college and for various competitions. Yes, sir?
A couple questions. I like your colors and I like your artwork. I'm wondering if we might lose some of the knowledgeable or uneducated people, because it doesn't say ride or transit. I'm wondering if maybe there's something we can piggyback off. And then additionally, the artwork on the side of the bus is going to be that big, or is that going to diminish our advertising space?
It would be that big. The advertising space would be the space that was behind it. Yes, it would diminish your advertising space. I think that you're using the buses to promote your own identity is critical. While I understand the need for the revenue and for selling the advertising space, I think it's important to balance those two things, and that's what we were really trying to do. The back of the bus is probably the space that is most lucrative from an advertising sales point of view, and we would leave that space open for advertising, as well as that back panel on the two sides. So the front of the bus would be yours, the back of the bus would be for advertising, basically. As for people not getting it, I don't think that's a huge issue. You know, some systems do put somewhere on their buses public transit, you know, just a little tag that says public transit. I think if we do a good job of promoting, if the bus stops have this same signage on them, people are going to know that Calaveras Connect is their
I'm wondering if
transit
you could
system.
maybe just add a tag to that with an ampersand and ride or something in a different font that makes it stick out.
And ride?
Yeah, connect and ride. Or something.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think that would really weaken the brand, yeah. I think if you were going to do anything, it would be somewhere apart from the logo, would simply to have a label that said public transit. But I really don't think that it's going to be an issue. Systems name themselves lots of different things, and if you make it clear that it's a transit system and all your communications do, and your bus stop signage carries through the same branding, I think people are pretty smart.
Okay, I've had a couple board members look at me, and Ms. Herman.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, I kind of prefer the upper one, but I was wondering about the dots. You were saying that they could be used. Can they be used in a more creative way than if we go with the upper one?
You know, this is a matter of opinion. I think they can. I prefer the bottom logo because I think it is more imaginative, and I think it's more eye-catching because it's not quite so expected. And yes, the dots do offer a lot of potential for creativity. That said, the top logo is also a very good logo.
Yeah. Okay.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you. The thing I was looking at is I had to actually just stand back and hold these away from me, saying, okay, if I'm seeing this bus from a quarter of a mile away, which one is going to catch me quicker? And the lower one actually does, simply because of the size of the font. But the thing I'm thinking too is that the hood itself is a missed opportunity. As you're driving down the highway and visually meeting this transit system, there's nothing that says, that's who I am. It's just a blue hood.
No,
If there
and I
was,
think we probably would put something on
Even
the
if we
hood,
put
although I'm not sure how much you can see the hood.
no, it's what they see in their mirror or what they see visually, just a momentary glance, and the CC might be all that you'd need up there on the hood. Just something as a quick identifier that as they're sitting at the bus stop, from a distance away, they know immediately that C is something unusual, and so therefore it must be coming, and it agrees with what I'm seeing at my bus stop. The other thing is that we have to be very careful with the advertising space, so we don't disturb the logo with the advertising space or type that we use, because we could all of a sudden get a very busy back corner back there that would detract from the overall image that we're trying to create. So I don't want it to become, in essence, a page on the back end of the bus that doesn't really add to our overall image. Our image has to be first over the advertising, even though the advertising will bring revenue in. It's not really the driver.
I couldn't agree more, but that's y'all's decision to make.
So I'm going to try and not sound too negative here. I like both of them. I think they're great. But the moment I saw the first one, it really was confusing to me, because the first thing that came to my mind was Confer. Confer, the new company in town. So the first thing I thought of was them. So I am a little bit concerned about looking at that and them being, I just pulled up the buses, or the website, and it seems too close even with the color coordination with them, because they have a similar the only thing that's different is we have open space on the top. Theirs is a complete circle with a triangle going into the center, and they're similar blue design color. So that would be my, just since they're popping up, they're new in the area. But my first reaction was, why have I seen this before? And that's because I'm relating it to they're the new
It's
communications, Confer, right down.
Churchill and 49.
It's
Yeah.
Conifer Communications.
So that would be my only concern of,
And I think we're on an equal playing field.
yeah, that would be my only concern about that, because that was my initial reaction to it. I think it looks great. I think the colors are amazing. I just want to be careful if we do choose the first one that we make sure we're separating ourselves from that, and there aren't any other reactions like that in the community, since they're branding themselves as well. So,
I usually try not to give too strong of an opinion, but that is one thing that the second logo does, is that it's not going to be like anything else, because it's pretty non-traditional. So it's going to be more distinctive from other logos in the community, because obviously C is something you use here. It's Calaveras County, you know. You're going to see other Cs, so.
Council.
and I can also see with the second logo, like other options. I mean, when we start going into the Saturday Hopper from Angels to Murphys, you can change the green tone to frogs. I mean, you can do you can change the leaves to grapes, to grape leaves. So there is some fun with that to plug in with specific events that we would not be able to do with the first logo.
I like both of them. I do prefer the second one, but I do, on the first one, I do like the way the bus has more green in it. It just, I don't know,
So you
looks
like
a little
the
more,
wider
more
green?
friendly. I like
The wider green
how it
style.
does the C's together like that. But I don't necessarily like the small CC and then connect next to it. I like the bigger connect from the second one.
Yeah.
But overall, they're pretty nice.
Other council comments?
I'll say one more thing. Yeah, I did notice that the second one, the fonts are larger, and I noticed that right away with the top one, the smaller Calaveras. So, I don't know, I would probably lean toward the second one as well.
Okay. My first, and this is the first time I've seen this, my first connotation, and I'm in IT, so first time I hear the word connect, I'm thinking of Wi-Fi and connectivity. I don't think of transportation at all. So your connect the dots connect on the second logo, I thought was really clever, and I think once people realize that, it's kind of an Easter egg, as they say. It's one of those hidden meanings in something. Even with the lower logo, the fact that you put the C on the door, and I agree with Director Mills, putting that C on the hood would really stand out clearly. I haven't heard any other council member voice a concern about the word connect at all, so I'm not going to say anything about it either at this point. I like the Calaveras Transit. It really said exactly what we do and what it is, but if we're going to change it and be bold about changing it, this is a bold way of doing it. The only other thing I could say is use that lower connect up in the upper logo. And I like to connect the dots. I think that's really cute, and I can see what Amanda said about, you could color them purple for the grape stomp or something on a specialized logo. There's a lot of little things you could do with that, but to connect the dots, I thought that's really clever.
Also, the idea of connect, because I thought about the IT connotations too, but one of the things that transit is increasingly is technology driven, and you'll be adding ABL to your vehicles, we'll be getting Calaveras Connect back into Google Maps. So those are things that make it connected technology-wise, so maybe not a bad connotation there either.
Okay.
Well,
Any
thank
further
you all.
council comments?
I don't have it right now.
Any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. when I was Public Works Director in a small county, Amador, you had everything assigned to you, including the transit system over there. And it was called Amador, I don't know what it's called now, Amador Rapid Transit System, ARTS, A-R-T-S. And at that time, the telephone company was Pac Bell. And I had just gotten back from Hawaii, and in Honolulu, the buses are called The Bus. And so I asked the manager of the Pacific Telephone office over there in Jackson if we could get the phone number 223 bus, B-U-S-S. And he looked around, or he checked, and no, we couldn't get that. So we ended up getting 223 ARTS, A-R-T-S. And I don't see a phone number on here, but, you know, I was thinking, I wonder if any consideration was given to an abbreviated name of some kind. And what came to my mind as I'm sitting here is C-Trans. And I don't know about 754, or whether the 4 is consistent with the C on the telephone dial or not. I have no idea. But I was thinking something like that, because I don't see a phone number. I like the bright colors, but I don't see a phone number on there. And if the bus is going by and somebody wants to, you know, utilize the bus, it'd be nice if you knew the phone number. And it's easier if you can use some acronym of some kind, you know, to convey that phone number. And with respect to marketing, and of course, the council's heard this before, I think that the transit system should meet with the school district and work out something that would allow the transit system here to run the kids, not compete with them. You can't compete with the school district, but you can certainly run similar routes. You don't have to compete with them, but you can run similar routes. And what we found in Amador was that 65% of our ridership was either youth, we call it youth, and the elderly and handicapped. And the other marketing prospect may be, you know, the assisted living places here in Calaveras County, and I don't know how many there are, or whether they, some provide shuttles to shopping and things like that. So it may be an avenue that can be explored anyway to increase ridership. And I agree with I don't know, it was Councilmember Mills who said that would be some way to be able to see the fact that it's a bus coming from the direction that you're looking at. The other thing that came to mind was kind of a, and I'm not an artist, but kind of a cartoonish bus painted on the side where you have the bus taking off, you know, with not skid marks, but dashes that would indicate that it's going, you know, taking off. And the other thing is, with respect to marketing, is that there is such a thing as route deviation, and usually you can go up to 3/4 of a mile and deviate from the fixed routes. And I also said this before to the transit people, that they should have an ad in the newspaper that says door to door, because if they are within 3/4 of a mile from a fixed route, the bus can go up, pick them up right at their doorstep, and then when they come back from shopping or doctor's appointment, whatever it is, they can drop them off at their doorstep without having any kind of a dial-a-ride service, because you're allowed to deviate that 3/4 of a mile. Anyway, it's something to think about to increase ridership. Thank you.
Any further council comment?
2666-328 would do it. See if it's
Does that
available.
connect?
Does that connect?
Yeah.
Yeah, get that connect number.
You know,
there's no action this evening, but I believe we're looking for direction as to alternative 1 or alternative 2. We've got a number of comments, but I don't think any clear consensus on direction to staff to move forward for a December meeting.
Well, and I think to clarify too, we don't necessarily, I think the feedback we've received we'll take back and consider as we move forward. Really too, just looking for any fatal flaws in these 2 designs, and I think just the general direction that the board is supportive of us moving forward with these designs. I think that's really what we're looking for.
Are you saying that you can flesh this out more thoroughly in the December meeting when you're asking for an action approval type?
Yeah, in December we'll bring the final kind of logo and design to you, which will be one of these. I think I'm just looking for support to move forward.
Do you want us to poll for direction?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be good.
Are all those in favor of encouraging staff to continue in this direction of Calaveras Connect?
I'll go with that.
Yeah, I do.
I think
Sure,
You're
looking
you're
good.
pretty unanimous here. Some more vocal than others, but I think you got a pretty unanimous go forward.
I do like more of the green on the top one,
So
same
you
as
just-
Justin
You
said.
like the top one?
I don't like.
Well, I like the color scheme
You don't?
of it,
Okay.
but I do like the bottom color.
Not quite
Take
unanimous.
the bottom,
Okay.
Calaveras
Yeah,
Connect,
got
and put it on the top one. See what that
And
looks like.
if you are going,
I don't mind taking a look at that, that would be
with
nice
either
too.
one of these,
I mean, I think they did that because
speaking to
two
Mr.
CCs.
Muteri's point, and I understand his point, because this is new, and people aren't going to understand, it's going to take a while. There's no reason, right underneath here, the small letters, it doesn't say Calaveras Transit. It doesn't have to be large, it doesn't have to take away from this at all, but at least somewhere on there underneath there, Calaveras Transit. Because to expect people to know this dot-to-dot thing, if you go with that, they're not going to know. Most people are not going to have any idea, and they're not going to understand the connect. It could mean anything. That bus could be carrying, transporting medical marijuana, for what anybody knows, connect. You need to distinguish it some way for a period of time until people understand what you're doing here and what it is. For them to instantly understand and know what's going on, I don't think. And it's not going to happen. And just to put small letters underneath here, which would be across here, Calaveras Transit, would be a benefit to me, I would think, would make sense, at least for the first year or 2 years, whatever. And as you get new buses after it's gone through and people know what it is, you can eliminate it. But it certainly needs, in my opinion, to be on there, but then I don't like either one of them, so that's my opinion. I think one is not, the top one is very corporate, and we're not a corporation in any means, and the second one is too, that doesn't make, to the normal person looking at it, they're not going to ever connect the dots like you're thinking it's going to do. To me, in my opinion, they're not going to, they're going to be making jokes about it or making comments about it as far as what it is. So.
Do you think that possibly, to your point, is putting the Calaveras Transit logo in a removable, so the first 2 years or so to get people familiar with and have it removable later might be a better answer?
I would think you would need to do something like that. It can be in small letters across the bottom, Calaveras Transit. So people understand, especially on that logo, you still have the major logo that it's visible. You understand it's a logo, but at some point, and then you can gradually lose it as people understand what it is.
I would have to agree with that. There's got to be some kind of
Connection.
transition into the new. Because most of the writers, they're not kids on phones all the time. They're seniors that are looking at the paper. They rely on that logo. They rely on that. And it just needs to, phase into it better.
Tim and I may be headed in the same direction here, but I think one of the earlier comments made was also that maybe the word public transit rather than Calaveras transit. We already have the word Calaveras in this new logo.
Public transit.
But if we put public transit underneath the word connect in very small letters and emphasize that this is Calaveras Connect Public Transit, that gets everything across to everybody and I think satisfies a lot of the comments of the board. And with that said, Mr. Mudrides.
Another option would be to find a way to build it into the phone number. Some reference so that they connect the ride with the new logo. So that would be an option too. So, and I'm not trying to be difficult. I think you've done a wonderful job.
I know,
But I've been in marketing for
Yeah.
40 years, and I'm going to tell you that there will be people confused over this.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of
And
them.
I just wanted to make the point that we wouldn't just put this out there one day and the other logo would go away. There would be a transition campaign where we would educate people about the fact that, you know, Calaveras Transit is now Calaveras Connect, and, you know, it's going to take a while for the vehicles to get regraphicked and new bus stop signs to go up. There's going to be a period of transition where people have an opportunity to see that something new is coming. And my experience in other systems where we've done similar things, because I worked with a lot of transit agencies, it's not my first one, is that people get very excited about it. People who are regular bus riders get excited about having something new. It's like getting new clothes or getting, you know, a fresh coat of paint on your house. They like it, so.
Okay, so I'm hearing some general direction that the board is supportive of moving forward, but with the caveat of some
We'll find
adjustments to make it more recognizable as a transit system.
Transition period.
I like Calaveras Connect Public Transit. Public transit very small on the bottom, I think that would make it clear as a bird. Any further council comment?
I just got one more thing to say. Is there a part on the bus where it says who it's owned and operated by, like a normal over-the-road bus? I'm not.
Yeah, by the
it
CA
does-
numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
You always have.
Okay. So maybe we can make those bright so that when the bus is coming, they can see that that's actually owned and operated by Calaveras Transit. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we'll look
That's
at
actually-
options for how we
Just look away.
show that. And it might not be technically attached to the logo, but every single place the logo goes, you know, maybe we put a public transit system.
Trees required things to be on.
I thought so.
I think you can find a way to make this work just in the phone number. I think the logos are great. I think the colors are good. Just something else that makes sure that they recognize the fact that that's connected to transit. No pun intended.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. Item number 6, the Calaveras Transit Agency Monthly Performance Report. Ms. Collins.
This is our standard monthly report provided every month. This one's showing up through September. I don't have anything additional to add unless there's questions. And we'll be preparing through the new software program. We'll start generating standard reports for us. And we're trying to prepare a template for the semi-annual report that will be in February.
You can kind of tell when school started. The ridership went up.
Yeah, and then we might need to add maybe a ridership per day note here at the bottom, because the total operating days kind of fluctuate each month, so it's hard to tell from the totals the numbers, but actually from a ridership per day standpoint, it has an up. It's been increasing just slightly each month.
Yeah, that would be good. Did you have anything on advertising revenue or advertising sold yet?
Yeah, I can update on this.
July, we had 25 operating days and 964 hours. And September, we had 24 operating days, but we had 965 hours. Must have been
So
to the
it's-
Saturday hop or something.
Starting in on September 4th, we started the new transit schedules. So you might see some changes there, especially with the red line in terms of ridership numbers. But with the new schedules, we tried to maintain service hours and service miles.
Any further questions or comments about the transit report? Paratransit operations report. We have a one-page summary here.
Hello again, Cynthia Lawrence, Paratransit Services contractor for Calaveras Transit. So we'll start off with our on-time performance checks. We were at 99% for September. I'm thinking with the new programs that we have, we'll be able to actually give this to you in real time, so to speak. So we're looking forward to that. Currently in September, it looks like 136 average passengers per day, which is good, but it's not great. So we're going to work on that outreach. We had no cancellations. It's always nice. Sometimes we have some anomalies with the traffic. People have accidents and it closes down roads and we can't get around them. So, but luckily, none of that happened. Our safety and training, we do safety and training meetings following every holiday with the exception of Christmas and New Year's. And so we did one on September 8th. And we worked on deviations, calling them out, explaining them, how we do those. We also do clinics a lot of times too, but this time we just worked on our pre-trip procedures. On October 26th and 27th, we did some iPad training for our new system, and the drivers are coming along. It's a pretty easy system. Little quirks here and there, but they're getting it. Let's see. So you know about our transit service updates on September 4th, a little bit behind there, but currently everyone's got it now. All the transit riders have figured it out. They're really enjoying having more service and connectivity with Columbia College, Amador. They love going over to the transit, Sutter Hill Transit up in Jackson. They really enjoy that because they actually have more options now. We did some outreach and events. I worked with WorldMart and their marketing director, Jamie, and we were able to have some pretty good turnout for the Wild West Fest days, provided a little bit of additional service for that. Between the three buses, we actually did, what was it, 656 passengers, which is pretty awesome.
Nice.
And everyone at WorldMart seemed really happy about getting that all done. Murphy's Witch Walk, I don't have any numbers on that, but I know that it was a pretty successful one, and tons and tons of people there in Murphy. So the driver said there, everyone came out there looking pretty sly, so it was pretty fun. Our resource connection, we coordinate with the food bank. So if you notice, there's some dates. We just did 11/3 at Save Mart and Marval. A little slow in the process, but they're still working. It's always slow, the first one, for some reason. But our next one is at Treats and Marval on 11/17. And then we have Marval and Save Mart again on 12/1. So those will pick up pretty heavily for the holidays. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, our team member of the month was Livier Rodriguez. And just want to remind you, she has a true commitment to our service and our community. She's always at all the stuff, the bus events. She helps out all the time when we have any other events. usually the Wild West Fest and the Jumping Frog Jubilee, she's usually the first to say, hey, I'll sign up, I'll work the booth or something like that. So we're really proud of her. So, do you have any questions?
It was mentioned earlier that one of the lights at Vista del Lago and 26 has never worked in the bus shelter. Now that Paratransit is doing the maintenance for the buses, does that also follow with the lights on the shelters? Do we have
Amber and I probably have to talk about that, but
I jumped the gun here, I'm sorry.
he's pretty handy. We'll go check that out though, because there's two lights.
We have
And
a
so-
lawyer here, so.
There are two lights. There's one that was just recently placed, and I'm not quite sure why they put it there, but it's a dim light, and then if you press it, it goes brighter. But the shelter itself has solar panel lights too. So I don't know which one's out or not working. My assumption was it's the new one, but I don't know that for sure. So I guess when I go home, I'll go find out.
Okay.
So, any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff reports.
I didn't have any written reports for you, but Chair Gomes reminded me to give you some updates on things that are going on. So the advertising program is going well. We've sold all the backs, so the full backs of all the buses are sold now, and some of the sides, and we're just selling that half back of each side to allow for the branding on the buses. So that's going well. I talked about the software program during the COG board meeting. I think we'll look to provide a presentation to you on that program at the next CTA board meeting so that you can see what that project does. And then the Saturday Hopper is now suspended for the next 3 months. We've, through the September service schedule changes, we changed it to a seasonal schedule since November, December, and January were always really slow months for the Saturday service. So we're suspending that until President's Day in February. It'll start back up again. And that are my updates.
And that concludes our Calaveras Transit Agency meeting. Our next meeting will be on December 5th here at 6:30.